Baik, Koresponden Astro AWANI Jenniffer Glasse turut berada di Donetsk bagi membuat liputan lebih rapat di lokasi, dan kami difahamkan beliau ada berdepan saat yang mencemaskan. Saat yang mencemaskan apabila ia melibatkan kumpulan pemisah, kumpulan pemberontak ketika membuat laporan di lapangan. Dan Jenniffer ketika ini sudah pun berada di talian serta Skype untuk berkongsi pengalamannya. Hello Jenniffer, can you hear me well?
Hi there, yes I can.
All right, Jenniffer, first of all, I heard that you had a terrifying moment with the rebels, terrifying encounter with the rebels today. So what happened actually?
We did. We were here in Donetsk. We were filming this afternoon. We were about 150 checkpoints. Nothing strategic, not trying to be threatening at all. We've been filming perhaps maybe 4 minutes. Just very far away down the street, some people walking on the street, when one of the separatists came up in a car, grabbed the camera, tried to throw my cameraman in his vehicle, grabbed my phone away from me, was very aggressive, and we showed him our accreditation. We had accreditation from the local separatist group here, the Donetsk People's Republic, and yet they still detained us for almost an hour, very, very aggressively. They forced us to erase our footage. They did finally give my phone back, but a very, very tense situation, and I sense really of how tense the situation here is with the separatists in Donetsk. They claimed that their checkpoint was a strategic location and we had no right to film there, so that we needed a different kind of accreditation, even though we'd gotten new accreditation yesterday. So a real sense of how things can turn on a dime here. It took a couple of officials to let us go. We're all fine. But a sense of how tense things are here in Donetsk. Of course, the city is in separatist hands.
Well, Jenniffer, seems like, first of all, of course, we're glad that you're safe. And based on your story, and this is not like first time journalists encounter this kind of situation with the rebels. So exactly whether, the rebels wouldn't welcome journalists in their area. So can you explain to us the situation basically would involve those kind of moment, and as well as the security situation, especially in Eastern European?
Of course. We had no problem. We traveled to the plane crash site outside of Donetsk yesterday. It's about 60, 75 kilometers out of the city. We had to go through at least half a dozen checkpoints to get there, and we had no problems with the separatists. They knew we were journalists. They looked at our accreditation and just waved us through the checkpoints. They said there were no problems at all. But Donetsk city itself, the Ukrainian military is really on the doorstep. There's fighting at the airport, just about 10 kilometers away from where I am in the city center. I think the separatists feel that the Ukrainians might try to make an offensive into the city, and so they've taken up very serious defensive positions around the city. And so the situation is very, very tense. We were fine in the center of town, but if you get anywhere near their checkpoints and they think you're filming, they got very, very aggressive. We had no problem traveling through the checkpoints, no problem traveling in and out of the city, but I think there certainly is very much a sense of what might happen next here. The rebels seem to be fortifying their positions. The Ukrainian military launched an offensive here in the city on Monday. There were a couple of rockets by the train station. As a matter of fact, while trains still went in and out, many people simply did not come into the town. And this town of about 1 million people is very much deserted. Many people have left for their safety. A lot of the shops are closed. Very interestingly, most of the car dealerships have no cars in them at all because they're concerned that there might be violence here. So it's almost a ghost town here. The few people that are left here, I've seen many elderly and old women stopped on the street yesterday and said, I hope there's not war here. But very, very few people in what normally would be a very bustling city of 1 million people.
All right, there are more bodies yet to be recovered. So can you tell us briefly the progress of the recovery efforts?
Well, we know that the OSCE was at the recovery site yesterday. They were out there with the Malaysian investigators looking at pieces of the wreckage Today they're out there again, and they did mention that they saw some remains out there. It's unclear whether their whole bodies or just partial remains there. And we're trying to clarify who exactly would be in charge of picking up those remains. We know that in some cases, the local emergency authorities went and got those remains. Right now, because the situation is very unclear, the OSCE is just an observer group, and Malaysian investigators are there to investigate the wreckage. And we're trying to get some clarity on who is in charge of picking up those remains, of locating those remains. And of course, the challenge is the vast size of that wreckage site, over 10 kilometers. We were there yesterday and saw, the tailpiece and the cockpit are 6 or 7 kilometers apart. We spoke to an eyewitness yesterday who had a body fall in his garden, and yet very few other pieces of the plane were found in that immediate area. So we're talking a vast area. People are trying to, at a rural area. So while there are some villages there, it is mainly a rural area where much of this wreckage is. So it's still very much a challenge, first of all, to find out how many remains perhaps are still out there, and they're looking to the investigators in the Netherlands to try and figure that out. And then, of course, to try and determine who should pick up those remains, who's responsible for them, and how to get them to Kharkiv. And then from there, Kharkiv, here in Ukraine, they get it flown on to the Netherlands.
Of course, the two focus, international focus would be what and who brought down MH17. Do you have any details on the progress of aviation disaster forensics so far?
Well, Ash, it really depends on who you ask here. While we were being detained by the separatists here, they made a point of coming up and telling us it wasn't us who shot that plane. We didn't have the equipment to do that. We would need a radar-equipped system. Exactly who had what and when is very contentious here. The separatists initially were very hostile at letting people to the site. Now they're letting people to the site. But I think it is a very, very contentious issue. You hear very different stories from different sides. The separatists here say it had to be a Ukrainian plane that shot it down. The Ukrainians say it must have been a surface-to-air missile. And, of course, yesterday we saw 2 Ukrainian planes shot down not far from here, not far from the crash site. 2 fighter jets shot from out of the sky. And, again, we don't know who shot them down, but clearly the ability exists in this region to shoot planes out of the sky. It's very much contested. I think everybody's waiting to see what the investigation will come up with. We do know that the Malaysian investigators saw a couple of pieces of fuselage yesterday that they thought were very interesting, more interesting than the rest of those fuselage. It apparently involved a kind of holes in the fuselage that might determine what brought this plane down. But still, I think, Ash, a very, very sensitive subject here, a very, very difficult subject, and of course that's one at the heart of the investigation here. What happened to the Malaysian flight number 17? Why did it fall out of the sky?
Well, Jenniffer Glasse, thank you very much for keeping us informed of the latest situation, especially in Donetsk.